Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
Welcome, everyone, to a fresh edition of GTF, Gabriel Talks Football. My name is Aldo Gandia. A quick programming note. Tomorrow it's the Willis Twin Towers. They'll give their take on the NFL schedule. They also have a very special guest. And I think that's it. That's it for the rest of the week. Last night we did the Bare Their Souls, Dan Aguirre, Johnny Santucci, and our special guest, Mr. Shorty, looked over the schedule and made a lot of fart jokes. So for those of you who like that kind of stuff, you can find it here on the Barroom Network's YouTube archives or wherever you get your audio podcast. Let's bring in the man of the hour right now. His name is Greg Gabriel. Greg, how are you, my friend?
I'm still recovering from last night.
What happened last night? Tell your fans.
It was my 20th anniversary.
Very, very nice. How could any woman put up with you for 20 years?
God only knows. That's why we had to go to a nice place.
Oh, very nice.
They should sponsor us now because I'm going to give them a plug. It's a new restaurant in Vernon Hills called Perry's Steakhouse. It's right on Milwaukee.
Okay.
Really, really nice.
Oh, all right. Maybe my wife and I will take a drive out there. Let's see. We've got all sorts of people in the chat room already filling up. One and all are welcome. We're going to talk about the NFL schedule. And Greg, your immediate reaction once it kind of sunk in all 17 weeks.
Well, in all honesty, I didn't even see it until about 11 o'clock last night because I was out. So, I had seen what was rumored to be the schedule, and a lot of that turned out to be true. But I had two thoughts right off the bat when I actually studied it this morning. And I went and wrote about it right away at about 6 o'clock this morning for Windy City. It'll be up probably in a little while. Two different things. One, I think a lot of people will have because that jumps out. The other thing I'm not sure about. The first is there's not a divisional game until week 11.
Right.
And 6 of the last 8 games are divisional opponents, which is unique in and of itself. And if you have a team, say similar to last year that got off to a little bit of a slow start and then came on strong at the end, those last 8 games are going to be really, really important, with 6 of them being division games. So I think that part is huge. Hopefully the Bears will be fairly injury-free at that point of the season. But, I didn't look at what Detroit's schedule was or what Green Bay or Minnesota's is, but if all these if all are similar, that they're playing most of their division games, in the last half of the season, then that's going to make the race really, really interesting. Because you want to win the division, you got to beat your division opponents, and really, just to get into playoffs, those games are very, very important. Now, I heard Bigsy on the radio this morning. I only heard the last part of it when I was going to the gym. He's pegs them at 10-6.
And J2K just asked a question. Do you think that 11-6 is too optimistic?
I don't like to get into that, only because you don't know exactly. Let's get through one thing at a time. Camp and then preseason, and let's see if there's still going to be some additions to this team. We know there's going to be an edge brought in sooner or later. And by the way, there's another tweet by Yannick Ngakoue, And
Ooh.
yesterday, I think it was. Let me see if I can find it here.
He
Which I
is.
thought
I read your article at Windy City, and you pointed out that Brad Biggs thinks that ship has passed, but Dan Wiederer
right, but
thinks.
everybody else thinks it's going. And then he said, more motivated than ever. Number
Wow.
91, which is the number he wore here.
And it's interesting too. He wants a long-term contract. So what are you going to do? You're going to give him 2-3 years? He doesn't want another
No.
contract.
And who else is? You look at reality is his last few contracts have been 1-year contracts. Why is that going to change?
Yeah.
And last year, as compared to the rest, now granted he was injured part of the year, his sack total was the lowest of his career.
Yeah.
So
well,
I'm not giving him a 2-year deal.
Right. Well, and he probably would have notched another couple of sacks had he finished the entire season. What, he missed the last 3 games or so?
Yeah.
But nonetheless, the Bears are in desperate need of another outside pass rush. And Yannick, or as Sir Robert Butcher says, Emmanuel Ogba, he was once a 4-6 guy. Does he fit the other defensive end that we're looking for? You've talked about this before, Greg. Give us an update on your feelings.
From a fit point of view, looking at his size, speed, that type of thing, he's a fit. What bothers me is that, okay, one of the things that Flus and Poles are looking for is top-notch competitors, guys who love the game, go all out every play. And early in his career, this guy was a really good player. So he ends up going to Miami and signs a long-term contract for some pretty big money. And he stunk. It's like, okay, I got the money, and let's forget about it. Now, he got hurt part of last year. He still had, or 2 years ago, missed a lot of the season. Still had 5 sacks last year, but Miami made the decision. They took the hit on the cap. We're moving on. So, and I think that has something to do with it. So that has to be answered. People just look at what a lot of fans do is they look at the names, but they don't know some of the background. And you got to know the background because that's important.
Right. And Kay says that Aqua, perhaps didn't fit into Vic Fangio's 3-4 scheme, and he's probably better suited for a 4-3. That might have something to do with it.
Yeah, but what happens is that when you get into sub package and you're playing in the sub package 75 to 85% of the time, everybody's doing basically the same thing. So he's not really playing as a 3-4 outside backer. He's playing as a defensive end, rushing the passer.
Right. You mentioned to me before the show that there were 2 things that caught your mind about the schedule. You've shared the first. You ready to share the second?
Yeah, this one and this one jumped out at me a lot. And I might be throwing something against the wall, but I really think there's something to this. You look at 4 of the first 5 games. So Tennessee, Houston, Indianapolis, then the Rams are 4 and Carolina's 5. What's the common denominator of all 4 of those teams? Meaning the Titans, Houston, Indianapolis, and Panthers.
Immediately to mind, I don't know.
They all took a quarterback real high last year. 3 of them went in the top 4 picks. And Will Levis, who everybody thought was going to be a first-round pick, goes the first pick in the second round to the Titans. So it's all the top rookie quarterbacks from last year. And who they're playing against? The Chicago Bears with the top quarterback from this year. I think that's done purposely by the league. I really do.
Oh, okay. I think that's a great point. A great point.
Especially like game 2 at Houston, you got C.J. Stroud, who had the best rookie season since Andrew Luck, and first rookie quarterback to get his team to the playoffs since Andrew Luck. That was 2012. And, Indianapolis, Richardson started off good, then he got hurt, missed the rest of the season, but they got really high hopes for him. Panthers, that was the first pick in the draft with Bryce Young. So versus the first pick in the draft this year, and they brought in a new coaching staff, and hopefully their talent around him is better than it was a year ago. So I think all of these are just really, really interesting. And the Titans with Will Levis played really good football. He didn't take over as a starter till around midseason, maybe a little earlier, but played really, really well. And that's a big guy with a big arm. And just, when you see that, you got 4 of your first 5 games against young quarterbacks, and the Bears are going to be obviously having a young quarterback leading the way for them. I just think that was purposely done by the league.
Yeah, and J2K points out that we face 8 teams with a rookie or second-year quarterback, which, of course, that's not pre-planned by the league. But I totally get your point, Greg, in that, this team, there was some TV thinking, marquee quarterback matchups, young quarterback matchups to start the season. That's pretty interesting.
Well, there was all this ballyhoo about Caleb is a generational quarterback, the best quarterback to come out since Andrew Luck. And I think what the league did, putting this schedule together this way, well, we're going to find out real quick if that's true.
Yeah, indeed.
Because we're going to put them against the guys who were number 1 last year.
Right.
Excuse me.
Taking a look at this Titans defense, because as I've heard said many times, is that the preparation for the Titans game starts today. So up at the front, they've got Sebastian Joseph Day out of Notre Dame. They got the interior lineman who got into some trouble before the draft and became, available, I think, in the second round for the Titans. Tavondre Sweat. Jeffrey Simmons is the other third down lineman, and then you got your 4 linebackers: Harold Landry, Jack Gibbons, Kenneth Murray, Arden Key. This defense doesn't strike fear in me. It shouldn't in the Bears either. What do you think?
Well, you look at it there, and it says 3-4 on paper, but as we were talking off the air, when you get into your sub package, Landry and Key become pass rushers.
Yes,
and one of those guys, either Joseph Day or Sweat's going to be off the field. Simmons is going to, he's an every down player. And Simmons is a really good defensive tackle. So they got a formidable defense, and they got some guys in Landry and Arden Key who can rush the passer. Landry being probably the best one. It's going to be interesting. I'm glad the game's here. You're going to have a very loud, vocal, boisterous crowd, hopefully it stays that way. J2K said Sweat against Ryan Bates is going to be interesting. Bates has played good. I mean, he's played in the league now 5 years. He's played against some good people. So, and Sweat is a rookie, but if he has the competitive nature that you would think he has, especially with the off-field problems he had with the DUI, and then there was a lot of talk that came out right near the draft and after that he was lazy and things of that nature. It'll be interesting to see, because he's got talent. There's no question he's got talent. That, how good he will be once the season starts, and he's going to want to be at his best in that opener, no question about it.
You're very familiar with Notre Dame. Kay is asking who the F is Sebastian Joseph Day.
That's not the Notre Dame game. I don't think that's the Notre Dame guy.
Oh, okay. I thought it was.
I
My
know
bad.
the guy you're thinking of. I don't know who Sebastian Joseph Day is. I have to look that up.
All right, I'll look that up while you take a look at the offense, because again, it's important to come out with a 1-0 record. On our social media X account, I listed that the Bears are like 2-8 in their last 10 openers, and so that's a trend that has to reverse itself. On offense, they've got Will Levis, second-year man at a quarterback, and I wrote down here Will Levis 3-6 last season as a rookie, 58% completion percentage, which was the worst in the NFL. He threw 8 touchdown passes and 4 interceptions.
Yeah, but you got to look at the big picture, and he really he got better all the time as he got more play time. They brought in some new players. Their running game, Pollard and Spears, aren't too bad. They had a huge free agent signing in Calvin Ridley, and then Tyler Boyd and DeAndre Hopkins is older, but he's like Keenan Allen. Great route runner, got good size, catches everything. So he's very quarterback friendly. I mean, they got a formidable offense. Going to be playing. I'll tell you the interesting thing. They're saying they're going to move Latham to left tackle. My personal opinion, that's a mistake. Now, it's a big, strong guy, and as a run blocker, he's going to be good. But I don't know if he's got the lateral agility and recovery to play on the left side against top NFL pass rushers. I thought he was I like him, but I thought he was a right tackle all the way, just like Darnell Wright was last year. Skoronski, we all know about him, local kid from Northwestern. Cushenberry might have been one of the best centers available in free agency. He's a good player. I don't know much about Brunskill and Rad News, but the left side of that line, including the center, that could be pretty good. But Latham, I just think, in the run game, doesn't matter what side he's playing in. But, he's predominantly a right tackle at Alabama. And now, so you're playing on the opposite side. You got your left hand down instead of your right hand. Excuse me. And, how is that going to affect his pass blocking, especially if you got a decent speed rusher for the Bears on that right side?
Yeah, I think this team shows a lot of promise. I don't think they're ready to compete yet, but there's going to be some challenges here for this Bears offense. And by the way, I did look up, excuse me, Sebastian Joseph Day. And he is a 29-year-old, 7-year pro. Last season, he played with the 49ers, but he only played in a total of 5 games. And prior to that, he was with the Chargers for 2 seasons and with the Rams.
Did he go to Notre Dame or did he go to another school?
No, he went to another school. Let me see if I can find that quickly. It doesn't say for some reason on NFL.com, but nonetheless, this defensive line for the Titans could be a weak spot. A lot depends, of course, what
Simmons
kind of
is a pretty darn good player. I'm not going to underrate Simmons. He's a good player. I mean, he's been a Pro Bowl type player. And we know what kind of player Sweat can be. Will he be?
Yeah, indeed. So anyway, I got that down as a 1. You got to win at home. You got to win the opener. You got to beat a team.
There's no question. You got to go 2-2 in the first 4. Remember, I've been saying all along, let's see what the schedule is, because the schedule, we've been starting out the last few years with a really tough game. This game, it's a good competitive game, but it's not like you're playing a division champion. And
exactly.
Houston, they're the favorite to win their division right now based on what they did last year. But you also got to look at it, were they a one-year wonder? I mean, the Bears won their division in, 2018? With Mitch Trubisky at quarterback and everybody getting the accolades, and then they, got flushed down the toilet the next year. Well, is the same thing going to happen with the Houston Texans? It'll be interesting. They got some good additions, and the addition of Stephon Diggs is really going to help Stroud.
Mm-hmm.
Diggs is a fantastic route runner. He's still, he's 30 years old, but he still has good speed. But he knows how to get open. His problem is he's a prima donna, like a lot of receivers, and he wears out his welcome. So he was in Minnesota a few years, and they finally said, we don't need his bullshit anymore, and they moved on from him, traded him to Buffalo. Buffalo did the same thing, and he averaged well over 100 catches a year in Buffalo. But it was the antics in the locker room, the entitlement type attitude, the crying, and all that. They just said, we don't need this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I would think in his first year in Houston, he's going to be fine.
And you mentioned earlier that you think that Joe Mixon at this point in his career isn't going to scare anybody in the Bears defense.
No,
right?
he's a good running back, but no, I'll take the Bears backfield over him any day of the week.
Mm-hmm. Titus Howard, their left guard, is a guy I studied at the Senior Bowl. He was drafted much earlier than many expected, but his Senior Bowl.
Yeah, he was drafted to be a tackle, and they moved him inside the guard.
Indeed, but overall, this offensive line for them looks pretty solid. Blake Fisher, the rookie at right tackle, I don't know if he's going to be able to play tackle in the NFL based on my amateur evaluation.
I think he's a tackle, and right. When he was a really ballyhooed recruit at Notre Dame, and he started his opening game as a freshman at left tackle and got hurt. So he got hurt like in the third quarter. And didn't play again until the bowl game. And then they had moved, and by that time, Alt, who was also in the same class, had taken over the left tackle position. And Alt was actually recruited as a tight end and was playing tight end early in the season. But when Blake Fisher went down, then Alt got moved, and he was undersized that freshman year. They moved him out to the left tackle when he became a fixture. So then the next year, in fact, Harry Heastan, who's a good friend of mine, was the coach. And I said, a lot of people thought that Fisher might, his best position might be left tackle. He goes, no, he's right. And that's what he is. When you watch him play the last 2 years, and he started every game the last 2 years, that's what he is. He doesn't have that lateral quickness that you want a left tackle to have. He's got a lot of upside. He probably should have stayed in school, but then when did he go in the second round? So if you go in the second round, how can you tell him he should have stayed in school? Because the upside is there. He's a big guy with length. He's a good athlete. I think he's a little soft myself. If he's playing right tackle, that means he's going to be predominantly going against Montez Sweat. Now that'll be an interesting match.
Yes, indeed. Quite interesting.
He's going to get a baptism right away.
I love it. Overall, though, when I look at this Texans schedule, this definitely says to me playoff team and a team that could potentially be going deep into the playoffs for the next several years, and who knows, maybe even win the conference championship. They're building a good team there, and did it rather quickly too. I mean, it didn't seem to me like Lovie Smith had the type of weapons this team presently has.
No. Not even close. Lovey was a bridge to who the next coach was going to really be, who was DeMeco Ryans, and he got screwed over. Now he got paid pretty good to get screwed over, and probably got a 3 or 4 year contract and only was there 1 year. So he not like has made any money and not still making money on that deal.
Right. Well, then in week 3, they play a team that you're very familiar with, and that is, of course, the Indianapolis Colts. Their offense is going to be led by Anthony Richardson. You talked about him a little earlier. He started 4 games as a rookie and completed 50 of 84 passes for 577 yards, but got injured on a running play, and he was actually asked to run quite a bit in those early games to get kind of acclimated to the NFL. But they're a lot bigger in the pros than they are in college. But your thoughts on Anthony Richardson? I love the guy. I think the guy is a phenomenal. He reminds me of great athletic quarterbacks that the Bears have had in the past, like Anthony Richardson and, like Vince Evans and Bobby Douglas. But those guys weren't great passers. Can this guy be a great passer, Anthony Richardson?
He's got the potential to be. He's still got to prove it. And, from what I hear, talking to people there, they're very happy with what he's shown so far in the offseason. And he was the best thing about him, they feel, is that after he got hurt, when a guy gets hurt, sometimes he's like put in the corner and forgotten about. And that wasn't the case with him. He was really, really involved, very studious in the meetings, took a lot of mental reps, standing behind, the offense in practice every day. So he learned a lot. So he should be now, you go back, and I'm not comparing him to Patrick Holmes. Holmes really played in a couple games and then started one game as a rookie and then really came on his next year. So year 2 in the league. Well, this guy actually played more than Mahomes. But Holmes didn't start until the last game of the year because Chiefs already had clinched. But, this guy got more play time. The talent is definitely there. So, and they've got some good receivers. There's no question. Josh Downs, Alec Pierce, Michael Pittman, and then they drafted Adonai Mitchell, who was a 4-3 guy. I mean, they got speed, they got size. I mean, Pittman, Mitchell, and Alec Pierce are all big receivers. So, and on top of that, they got a great running back in Jonathan Taylor. I think if there's a weakness, it might be the tackle position. I don't know if Ballard would agree with me, but Raymond played decent as a rookie. He's a short arm guy though for a tackle. He's got 32.5-inch arms, and there's not many tackles playing in the league with arm length less than 33. And Braden Smith's got short arms too, and he was drafted to be a guard. And then they had an injury his rookie year. They had to move him outside. He's played well, so they've just kept him there. Quentin Nelson's one of the best guards in the game. Ryan Kelly's a very solid center. I don't know much of anything really about Will Fries, but they got a solid football team, and the game's going to be in Indy. I haven't looked at their schedule, so I don't know if they're on the road the first week, and this is their home opener, or no, this is the third game of the year. So it might be their second home game. That I don't know. But they're a good football team. Where'd you go, Aldo?
Sorry, I was muted. Is this a good game to unleash the young defensive pass rusher the Bears drafted, Booker, against these tackles who may not be, very good or good? This could be a good game against a track star like Richardson, is to have your fastest pass rusher out there, for as many passing snaps as possible. Don't you think?
I think that Austin Booker's going to get his baptism of fire right away. Not necessarily as a starter, but playing within the rotation, which means if he shows up during the preseason, then he's going to play at least 40% of the downs and maybe 50, the way they do the rotation. It's who's going to be the guy with him doing the rotation on that side. That player isn't on the roster yet.
I apologize. I was snoozing on the Johnson's demands.
My allergies are killing me this week.
Oh my gosh.
It's a bad week.
Yeah. Let's take a look at that defense that Ballard has put together. They got, your favorite, my favorite, Latu at the defensive end. I don't think there's going to be an injury concern with that guy.
No.
And teaming him up with Buckner and Stewart and Ibukam is a very solid front four.
No question about it. DeForest Buckner is one of the better 3 techs in the league. Grover Stewart is a big, strong, athletic, one technique or knows. They got some good players, and they got the backups are pretty darn good. Their defensive end rotation is very, very solid. There's a first round pick from a couple of years ago that'll, he could end up beating out Sampson on the one side, but regardless, you got a strong rotation for Indianapolis on the defensive line. I don't know much about their linebackers and Speed and Franklin. Julian Blackmon, they ended up re-signing him. He was a free agent. A lot of people thought the Bears might go after him. A little bit undersized for the strong safety, but good ball skills. Kenny Moore might be one of the better nickels in the league. Don't know much about Juju Brents and Dallas Flowers.
Okay. By the way, I looked up the schedule for the Colts. They start at home against the Houston Texans, and then go to Green Bay in week 2, and then host the Chicago Bears. So they got a pretty tough schedule to start with.
Yeah,
very tough. And then after that,
maybe they'll get beat up pretty good in those first 2 games. And
I like the way you think. All right, we move on to
that's one of my favorite teams, but not that week.
Exactly. Or leading up to it. They can win, but just show up beat up for the game. Rams in week 4, and of course Matthew Stafford. I thought this was interesting about Stafford. He has the same winning percentage with the Rams that he did with the Lions. 500. Now, I know wins and losses are not a quarterback stat, but when you have, several
I don't
years
agree with that, but I know people like to say that. How come when baseball pitchers have 1-loss record, it counts, but quarterback it doesn't? That makes no sense to me. To me, how you play in big games is very, very important. That means you better win.
Yeah, I agree that there is some relevance to that stat. But I do think, if you're a great quarterback and you've played with terrible defenses on your team, then, the win-loss record, you got to account for that. Don't you think?
Yeah, well, I can argue that the great quarterback's supposed to help everybody else on the team and raise their level of play.
Okay, that's a good argument. Well, anyway, back to this Rams team. He's won 500 of his games, 500 percentage with both the Lions and the Rams. I thought that was kind of an interesting stat. Sort of speaks to what you have said about Stafford. He's okay.
He's a stat guy, in my opinion. Always has been. Okay, yeah, he won a Super Bowl. He got the monkey off his back. But then what's he done since? Besides nothing. Excuse me.
Yeah.
He's they might have been bad. Goff, kind of got run off by McVay, but you look at Goff's play in Detroit versus Stafford's play in the Rams, they might be been better off with Goff.
I'm with you. That's my point.
That's the coach's decision. I go back and I remember when Stafford was coming out, and his surrounding talent at Georgia was the best in the SEC. Yeah, he couldn't win. And, he had some great players, and they didn't play great in big games. So, and I remember, us talking about that in the draft, not that we were going to take him, but just talking about it in the draft meetings. And to me, that's followed over into the pros, especially with his career with the Lions. Great numbers. So you're looking at the numbers, this guy's a player. Yeah, but he can't win. Except the first year with a great, a great supporting cast in the Rams, but last year he didn't. So,
interesting.
We'll see. It'll be, and the game's here, so it'll be interesting. Now, they got some interesting players on that team. They're going to be well scouted as far as how McVay thinks by the Bears, because you got a few coaches that work for McVay.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to know what they're going to do and how they want to do it.
Interesting. Thank you, Chim. He corrected that stat about Stafford being 500 with both teams. That's erroneous. My bad. But let's take a look at the rest of the offense for the Rams. Williams had an excellent year last year at the running back position. Tyler Higbee, strong tight end. DeMarcus Robinson, Puka Nacua, and Cooper Kupp are the wide receivers. Stafford has the weapons on offense, no doubt about it.
What's funny is that neither Nacua or Kupp can run, but they're really good receivers. And DeMarcus Robinson isn't necessarily a burner either, but they work well within that scheme, which is pretty much the same scheme that we're going to be running here. Their offensive line, we got their center from last year, so Evel is a new guy playing there. Havenstein's been there since the beginning of time. So he's getting up in age. I don't know much about both Jacksons. So, I don't think the line is an actual strong point. They're hoping it's a strong point. They made some changes. But to me, on paper, I think the line's kind of average.
Yeah. And the Bears historically had success against Aaron Donald, but they won't have to worry about Donald this year because he has retired. They have replaced Donald. Their front three is the Braden Fisk rookie, Bobby Brown the second at the nose, and Kobe Turner. And then you've got outside pass rushers Jared Verse and Byron Young, inside linebackers Christian Rosenblum and Ernest Jones. Not bad on paper, but it looks to me like this is an a renovated defense. It might take them a while to get things going.
I'm not as big a fan on Fisk as others are. Great competitor. And he played good at the college level, played very good at Western Michigan. Then he transfers for his final year down to Florida State, plays really good, but he was playing right next to Jared Verse. But I'm a numbers guy, and he's got 30-inch freaking arms.
That's short, man.
So so he plays hard, he's strong, he's tough, but he's going to have a leverage problem in the NFL, in my opinion, because his arms are so damn short. But we'll see. I mean, maybe his competitive nature is going to stand out and overcome that. But if it's me, I'm not taking a guy at that position that high. Granted, the tape was good, but it just. Oh, and by the way, remember we were talking about, and I wanted to find out. Why McVay looked like somebody shot him or something in the first round after their pick. They wanted to trade up to take the Georgia tight end, and they just couldn't get it done.
Wow.
So
Brock Bowers, huh?
Yeah. So Verse is like the booby prize, even though he's a good player. Okay, and now granted, he's listed as an outside linebacker. He's getting an edge. He's going to be, they're going to be playing in sub. There's only going to be two of those defensive interior guys playing at a time, and then those outside linebackers are going to become defensive ends and rushing the passer.
Wow. Yeah, Brock Bowers on this offense would have been dynamite. Oh, my goodness. I'm so glad that didn't happen. All right, let's move on to week 5. It is the Panthers. The kid comes in, Bryce Young, 2-14 as a starter last year. He was sacked the second most times in the NFL. So when you look at that offensive line, I'm not sure they've done much to correct their problems there. And rookie quarterbacks always deserve some of the blame with the amount of sacks. But overall, when you look at this offensive unit, your thoughts?
Well, new coach, new scheme, few new players. Biggest being Xavier Legette and Deontay Johnson. So the wide receiver core is that much stronger. That it was a year ago. I got the hiccup. Excuse me.
That's all right.
Kwanu is what was supposed to be a quality tackle coming out of North Carolina State when he came out a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't played up to that billing so far, but the talent's there. I don't know that much about the other guys. Taylor Moton has, been an up and down player in the league, and he has made some money though. Tommy Trimble is an interesting guy at tight end because even though he's not a big guy, really blocks well, and he can run good, catches the ball well. I think the running back situation is very average with Brooks and Hubbard, but it's really going to get down to, excuse me, how good Bryce Young plays.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just to let you know, they start the season, the Panthers do, at New Orleans, then play the Chargers at home, then go back west to Las Vegas against the Raiders, then come back home against the Bengals, and then travel to Chicago for this match. So they're going to have some air miles on them by the time they face. And let's take a look at their defense. Now, there's some interesting names here, but a lot of guys who have become journeymen. A'Shawn Robinson at the defensive tackle, Jadeveon Clowney.
Yeah, they just signed him recently, A'Shawn Robinson. Yeah. Derek Brown is the player.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, now they had some pretty good edge players, and they've been replaced. Jadeveon Clowney, former number 1 overall pick in the draft. He's a hot and cold player. When he wants to play, he can be pretty good, but he's not as good as what they had. They lost Burns. DJ Wanham was an interesting guy in free agency this spring, and he ended up going to Carolina. I don't think they're going to scare you as a pass rush team. The best guy they got in that front 7 is Derek Brown.
Mm-hmm.
Josie Jewell is a average athlete that's got great instinct, so he's going to play hard. Their J.C. Horn is a quality corner. Xavier Woods is good. I mean, their secondary is good, but and Derek Brown is excellent. But outside of that, I'm not so sure. The Bears got their second round pick, and I would think that's going to might be a top 5 second round pick.
Love it. After that, they travel to, hopefully they'll travel early in the week, to London for their matchup against Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Greg, you ever been involved in when you worked in the NFL with an international game?
Just in the preseason, not during the regular season.
So I forgot what year that was, but you beat the Cowboys in London. The Bears beat the Cowboys. That's the game you went to?
No. This when did we play in London when I was working here? I don't remember. Maybe we did. I don't remember. When I was with the Giants, we played a preseason game in Berlin, and now I can't think of. We had an old scout who played for the Bears, played at LSU, grew up in Arkansas. He died a couple years ago. He was like 95. A character, a real character. And I did not go to that game. Could have gone, but I ended up staying home for some personal reasons. But stories I was told is that they were at some Hofbrau and outside in Berlin, like the day before the game. And this guy who was a B-17 pilot, World War II, by the way, he just stands up and he's got a heavy Southern drawl. He goes, the last time I was here, this son of a bitch, I was up there at about 20,000 feet bombing the shit out of this place.
Holy cow. I like that. That's a scene in a movie there. Okay, so they are in Jacksonville for this Week 6 match, and they are considered the home team. I'm not sure that really matters, although they'll probably. Well, I was going to say there'll probably be more
And
Bears
Bears
fans there, but
travel good. That could very well be a Bears home game. It is a Bears home game,
yeah.
and it could very well stay a Bears home game. I mean, as
Well,
far
the
as
one thing about Jacksonville is that they play so often in Europe. They probably have developed a lot of European fans. But yeah, you're right. The Bears fans do travel well. So their offense looks like this: Travis Etienne at the running back behind Trevor Lawrence, Evan Ingram, a good tight end, good solid tight end, Gabe Davis, rookie Brian Thomas Jr., and Christian Kirk. That's a formidable. Uh,
that's
uh,
Gabe Davis is a big, productive wideout who was the X receiver for Buffalo and a big play producer for Josh Allen in Buffalo the last few years. He was a guy that I was kind of hoping the Bears might go after in free agency. They got Roman Dude instead, which, I'm happier with that. Brian Thomas, I mean, that they got him later than a lot of people thought he would go. That's another big receiver who runs in the 4.3s. He's a good football player from LSU. And Christian Kirk was the guy a few years ago who broke the bank as a wide receiver free agent, and really just changed the money given to wide receivers based on that original contract he got with Jacksonville. And he's been a decent player for him. I don't know if he's played up to that money, but he's been a very solid player for him. Cam Robinson, Ezra Cleveland, Mitch Morse is new. Now, some people thought the Bills should have gone after him, but the Bears should have gone after him. He was the Bills starting center the last 4 years, originally played with Kansas City. He's a solid player, but he's also 32 years old. And I think that's one of the reasons that the Bears didn't go after him. He's not a great player. He's a solid player. Brandon Sharp's a pretty good player. I don't know anything about Anton Harrison. But that's a formidable offensive line. Not a great offensive line, but solid. It's last year was supposed to be their year after being real good the year before, and they kind of fell off, which is, I'm wondering that's what's going to happen to Houston this year. This year's supposed to be their year, and are they going to read their press clippings and believe they're better than they are? Because I think that some of that is what happened to Jacksonville last year, and that's why they went out and spent heavy in free agency, guys like Gabe Davis.
Yeah. By the way, I know a little bit about Anton Harrison because I saw him down at the Senior Bowl. He's not a bad player. He's just a solid, slightly above average offensive right tackle in my mind. This is going to be a tough game, isn't it? And when you look at their defense, they've got some good players on defense. Roy Robertson Harris, that really hurts that the Bears let him go. But he is part of a defensive line.
Armstead from San Francisco, who's a quality player. Josh Allen just broke the bank as a edge rusher. Travon Walker was the first pick in the draft a couple of years ago, or second pick in the draft, but he got picked off of his speed, his workout, and his traits, not his production. And he hasn't really done a whole lot. He's a great athlete, but as a player, he's been average. Linebackers, Lloyd is okay. I don't know much about the other guy. If I'm the Bears, I go after Darby every freaking play at corner. He does nothing for me. They got Darnell Savage as the nickelback, and he actually played safety.
That's right.
Green Bay. So that would be a guy I'd try to target too. I'm looking at their secondary, and their secondary doesn't look that good to me.
I agree.
So, but that's on paper. They could end up playing great. It's how they play together.
Indeed. This team is going to be better than last year, but they still have a lot of holes. I it's going to be a tough one, but I'd love for the Bears to come away with a victory. And then after that, Greg, they take that bye. Clearly they get the bye because they traveled internationally. But we had a discussion on our show last night. Mr. Shorty was saying, I'm not sure I like the bye that early in the season. What are your thoughts? What's your philosophy on when a bye week is?
Last year, wasn't it real late last year?
Yeah, I think it was like week 15.
Yeah, which is too late. Not that with a young team, I don't think it's too bad. In that week 7, week 8, week 9 area, I think is the ideal time for a bye. Probably a week or two later, but they theoretically could have said no. We don't want the bye that week. Jacksonville, or there have been teams that have done that and play the next week. I don't know what their record has been. I'd have to go back and look. But to me, because of the travel, you want to do that because you're playing the game. Well, you're going to get back, like real early Monday morning. The game's played at 8:30 Chicago time. So it's going to be over at 11:30 Chicago time. It's 1:30 or 2 Chicago time. They might get back by midnight. But it's still, the jet lag from taking 2 long flights in a matter of days. To me, the important thing is when, not the bye, but when they going over. And there's different feelings about that. Some people think you should go early in the week. Some Buffalo's went late in the week last year and stunk. They went like on Thursday. So I don't know what the answer is, but it's I think it's an interesting question. The Bears do have some experience, but are any of those people still around to use to get that, their thoughts? You got your mute on, buddy.
Yeah, that's twice. One more time, and I'm fired.
We're gonna have to start fining you for the mute button. Yeah, 25 cents into the kitty.
At least. All right, so after the bye, they come home to play the Washington Commanders, and this is going to be one of those marquee rookie quarterback matchups.
Yep. Number 1 against number 2.
The last 2 Heisman Trophy winners, Jaden Daniels versus Caleb Williams.
And Caleb is a Washington kid.
That's right. That adds even more intrigue into the game. Yep. This, in my mind, is going to be a tough game. Take us through what you're seeing here on offense.
Well, let's start with the line. I think Cornelius Lucas does nothing for me.
Oh my gosh, he's still in the league?
Yeah, he's getting ready for Social Security. Cosby started off at tackle. He's at guard.
Yeah.
Wiley is a former Chief. Allegretti's a former Chief. He's a local kid, Chicago kid. Backup, but he had to play the last 3 or 4 games, including the playoffs for the Chiefs because of an injury. And he played well. So he earned the money he got from Washington. But I'm looking at that line, and it doesn't jump out at me. Wide receivers, McLaurin's a pretty good receiver. Johan Dotson is a pretty good receiver. Zach Ertz has seen his best days. Sinnett's a rookie that's got a chance to be a good player. Eichler has had his days, but he's not very big. The Bears defense against that offense, I think, is a plus for the Bears.
I don't know about that. I mean, at the trenches, I totally agree. The Bears defensive line, even without Ndakwe, is because he's officially not on the team. It might not be. I still think that the Bears defensive line will win the trench battle here. But these offensive weapons they have, Brian Robinson, I think didn't he win a Heisman 2-3 years ago? And Zach Ertz, the veteran tight end, along with the rookie Ben Sinnott, and McLaurin, Jahan Dotson are guys that just move the chain. This is a nice.
But they're to me
offense.
they're not. You don't have a Pro Bowl type player at the wide
True.
receiver position. They're not a guy. Yeah, they're good players, but is it a guy that Flus is going to be scared about going into the game?
Mm-hmm.
To me, the key is, and it's getting into midseason, so he's going to be, have games under his belt. It's getting pressure on Jaden Daniels. And the same thing is, they're going to be thinking the same thing, getting pressure on Caleb Williams.
Okay. Well, Scottish Bear is saying that Caleb Williams is going to torch this Washington secondary, and it's Benjamin St. Juste, Jeremy Chin, Derek Forrest, Michael Davis, and the rookie Michael Sandstrom from Michigan in the defensive backfield. That's not a bad defensive backfield. Although you line up Keenan Allen in the slot against Mike Sandstrom, I don't care how good he looked at Michigan. Keenan Allen is going to burn that young man.
Keenan Allen burns everybody he plays against.
Right.
The numbers have already proven that throughout his career. And then you look at they still got their interior defensive line and Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen is as good as there is in football. Their outside guys or pass rushers, they're like 5 steps down from what they were going into last year with Sweat and then the other guy. So Young. So, Durant's Armstrong, decent. He's not going to scare me. And Cleveland Farrell has been, in my opinion, been more bust than player.
Agree.
Bobby Wagner is a very solid middle linebacker. He'll call the defense. He'll line everybody up. He'll compete his ass off, but he's also pretty damn old.
Mm-hmm. That's going to be a tough match.
The head coach.
Right?
Yeah.
It's going to be a tough match. I misspoke earlier when I said that the Bears would be at home against Washington. They will clearly be on the road and then follow that up with another road game. They go to Arizona where the climate will be changing. Well, it will be nice and warm. Change from Chicago's cold weather. On November 3rd, Arizona Cardinals. Your thoughts on this Arizona team? Do you think that Kyler Murray is going to finally settle in as a reliable quarterback and maybe start getting the moniker franchise quarterback? Because really his career is still in question.
He does nothing for me. Never has. Never did it coming out of college. Hasn't since he's been in the league. He is an I, me, my guy, very entitled guy. He doesn't work at the game. Talented guy. And now he's got a talented receiver in, their top draft choice.
Mm-hmm.
But, he looking at that roster, I don't know much about Michael Wilson. Marvin Harrison can be pretty good. What will be interesting is who's better, Marvin Harrison or Roman Duze, when you're looking at that game and see how they play.
Yeah. Wilson was the kid, I think, that played with the Chiefs for a couple of seasons.
Yeah, the guy.
Sort of a Byron Pringle type of guy. But those two running backs, James Conner and the speedy rookie Trey Benson, should be a formidable duel. I love Paris Johnson coming out of Ohio State a year ago. He's the right tackle, and Jonah Williams isn't bad at the left tackle.
Jonah Williams, they got in free agency, but he was really run out of Cincinnati. He was a disappointment. He was the weak link on the Cincinnati.
Oh, okay. I must have him confused. Okay.
Okay, so I think if I got that right, Elijah Wilkinson, I don't know much about him. In fact, the three interior guys I don't know a whole lot about. Paris Johnson, obviously a quality player. If it's me, I'd be playing Paris Johnson on the left side and Jonah Williams on the right side. But I don't work there, so.
No. Free advice. My wife just came in. Honey, you need anything? We're live on the airs. Okay. She's waving me off. All right, so it's the Cardinals. I think a lot of people think that perhaps 2 road wins there are very possible in the middle of the season, and then they come home for a real 3 home game stretch. The first 3 game home stretch has the game in England, so this is the first real time they'll have 3 consecutive games at Soldier Field. It starts with the Patriots week 10, the Packers week 11, and then the Vikings week 12. Let's start with the Patriots. What are your thoughts? Let me see if I can find the graphic with who they are. There they are. What are your thoughts on Jacoby Brissett? Because it doesn't look like Drake May is going to play this first season.
Well, I think it's too early to tell. You got to see how that plays out in the preseason. But Jacoby Brissett is what he is. He's a journeyman.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is what the 4th or 5th team he's been with. Hunter Henry is a decent tight end. I like Jalen Polk, rookie wide receiver coming out. Kendrick Bourne, not bad. Don't know much about Demario Douglas. Juju Smith-Schuster, pretty good receiver. But looking at the line, like Caden Wallace was a right tackle at Penn State, starter the last couple of years. I don't see how in the world he can play left tackle in the NFL. He was, he could be a good right tackle. How he can play on the left side, and I don't think he's ever played there. Cole Strange, excuse me, my allergies are killing me. Cole Strange, decent player. Andrews, Sau, and Onwenu. I don't know much about those guys. I'm going to put that's a win for me. Patriots aren't the Patriots of 4 or 5 years ago.
That's for sure. That's for sure. They'll be coming off a road game in Tennessee. Let's take a look at the defense first before we finish up with New England. A lot of these names are not very impressive to me. You look at
they just extended. He's good, but nobody jumps out.
Right, that's the thing. They don't have a superstar.
Joe Don can rush the passer.
Yeah.
But looking at the rest, Christian Gonzalez, solid corner.
Mm-hmm.
Real Peppers, decent safety. After that, Duger's not bad. Like I said, I think they're going to be competing with the Jets to be who's going to be the worst team in the AFC East.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have to agree with that. This is definitely a transition year for the Patriots. They've moving on from the Belichick era, and they've invested highly in Drake May. Maybe by this time of the season, May will be established as a starter. We'll see. But right now, this looks like a very positive game.
And really, the jury's out on Mayo. Mayo's never even really been a coordinator.
Right.
Yet he's going to be a head coach, hand-picked head coach by the owner. So the whole dynamic of that team is very interesting to see how it plays out, because I think if they fall flat in their face, a lot of that's going to fall on the owner, because he's the guy who made these decisions.
That's right. All right, and then after that game, it is the Green Bay Packers, the nemesis of the Chicago Bears. Jordan Love really played well in the second half of the season. A lot of people think that he's going to follow in that Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers legacy. Josh Jacobs, I like that. Marshawn Lloyd, good pass catching running back out of USC. Luke Musgrave is a solid tight end. Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed, all young wide receivers that appear to be establishing a connection with Jordan Love and then the offensive line. Jordan Morgan starting at the left. By the way, this depth chart, all of these are put together by ourlads.com, which is run by your buddy Greg Dan Chanka.
Right. And Jordan Morgan was a first round pick, so they're projecting him to be a starter. That remains to be seen if he is. I thought, a good solid player in college, but was he worthy of a first round pick? I know that our 5th round pick kicked his ass a few times down at the Senior Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
So Elgin Jenkins is a solid player. Myers, solid player. I don't know much about Rasheed Wallace, but I'll just say this about Green Bay, even before you put the defense up. Until we beat them, they're the champs.
Mm-hmm.
And, and to say this is going to be the year we're going to do it, I'm not going to say that, because you say that before and you get laughed at. So it's let's see what happens in the game.
What I like is this comment
here, which is nice.
Yes, indeed. D. Staron says that Montez Sweat will get everybody ready for this game. And that's in reference to Montez Sweat saying in a podcast, we're not going to lose to Green Bay. I'm tired of losing to Green Bay. He sounded like a veteran Chicago Bear, and he's got this rivalry already embedded in him. And that's a good sign because you got to have that attitude against this team. If you think they're just another team in the schedule, your chances of beating them are remote. This is their defense, Greg. What do you think of it?
Well, your pass rushers and Preston Smith and Rashawn Gary are very good. Kenny Clark, he's given the Bears fits for years. Devontae Wyatt was a first rounder last year. Really hasn't broken ground as a top player yet. Their linebackers are a little bit different. Edrin Cooper's a rookie. Quay Walker. Their secondary has always been solid, even though there's some new people in there. Jair Alexander is very good. Bullard had a very good reputation coming into the draft. Xavier McKinney was a top free agent this year, got some money. So, they got some solid people. And so
they really do.
So until you beat them, they're the champs.
I got to tell you, the Lions now, but the Green Bay for years, I have always thought they drafted well. Now, they missed on some picks. They weren't developed or these guys, they didn't have the personalities to be mature men in the NFL. So there have been some misses. You look at Darnell Savage, who's playing nickelback for one of the other teams that we looked at. So they've missed on some. But, you look at these names on defense, every one of these guys, when they came out of college into the draft, I said, this is a good player. Xavier McKinney, Bullard, Alexander, Stokes, all of these guys are good players. Devontae Wyatt, man. So they draft well, and at least on paper, it's a scary team. And if Jordan Love is really the real deal, the Bears are going to have a tough time turning this trend of losing to the Packers.
And it's not like they were close with Green Bay last year. Green Bay beat them.
Right.
Detroit was a different story. Detroit, we'll get to in a little bit. Those are you should have won the first game against Detroit, and you did win the second one, I believe. So part of it's the matchups. They matched up well against Detroit last year. So up till now, at least in the last few years, they have not matched up well against Green Bay.
Yeah. Some comments in the chat regarding Matt Eberflus being the deciding factor in some of these games. What are your thoughts on Matt Eberflus in terms of, does he get another year if the win-loss record doesn't change much, or if he doesn't pass the eye test, your Greg Gabriel eye test as to, okay, he's providing leadership.
I don't have one. I think they are doing a disservice to the quarterback if they try to change the coaching staff. They spent a lot of money retooling that offensive staff. And the powers that be, meaning Ryan Poles and Kevin Warren, are buying into Flus. So I'd be really shocked if he's not the head coach. If he is, they're just following the same script they did with Mitch Trubisky and Justin Fields. And now you're going to, have another coach coming in a year from now who didn't take the quarterback and got to start all over with a new offense and everything else. To me, that's going backwards. You want to have a good team, you got to develop continuity. And the fans here are just too impatient. And hey, you're playing with a rookie freaking quarterback this year.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, if to me, the goal should be win 9 games, be 9-8. It's a winning season. Anything after that is a bonus.
Okay. So practical advice, take it easy on the head coach. This is an evolving team, and we shouldn't have grand expectations. But again, I think I also hear you saying this team could win 12 games, right?
I never said that. I said Big said they were going to win 10.
I was reading in between the lines, so I totally misread what you were saying. I thought had
Big said this morning, which surprised me because Biggs is usually more on the negative side, but you got to get lucky. You got to stay. Your key people got to stay injury free. You got to beat some teams you're not expected to beat, and be close in all of them. And you got to hopefully start off fast. I think the worst they can do in the first 4 games is 2-2. You'd want to be 3-1. 3-1 is going to be tough with that schedule.
Yes, it is. Yes,
and I've been saying that all along. If you can come out of the gate fast, that will develop momentum for the whole year. They didn't do that last year. You got to hope that they can do it this year.
It's been a long time since they've done it. 2018, they lost their opener, but went on to win several games, and it hasn't been since then that the Bears have gotten off to a good start. All right, let's. The Vikings are in Week 12 after the Green Bay game, and this Vikings offense is right now. Sam Darnold is starting the season, but maybe
I'd love to see Darnold playing quarterback. You can
against the Bears.
I think J.J. McCarthy is going to be a pretty good player. They got Aaron Jones from the Packers, running back, good player. Hawkinson, one of the better tight ends. Justin Jefferson is, and Jordan Addison are great wide receivers. Brandon Powell is new as the number 3 guy. Christian Darrison, Darrisaw, quality left tackle. Bradbury's a quality center. Brian O'Neill's a quality right tackle. I don't know much about the guards, Ingram and Braden, but it's all going to depend. Their offense is going to depend on how quickly McCarthy develops. If in fact he's a starter, and he probably will be.
All right, let's take a look over at the defense. Some really interesting names there, including Dallas Turner, a guy I would not have mind seeing with the Bears.
Well, they lost their best rusher, Danielle Hunter, to free agency, and actually it was like a trade because Jonathan Bullard came from Houston, and Hunter went to Houston. Dallas Turner's got a chance to be a hell of a rookie defensive end. Harrison Phillips and Tillery, if they end up being the starters, Phillips is a try-hard, competitive guy. Tillery's got some dog in him. Athletic, but hot and cold player. After that, the linebackers, I don't know much about. Cashman, Pace.
I can tell you this about Andrew Van Ginkel because he was featured on Hard Knocks last season, the in-season version with the Miami Dolphins, and he came in place of an injured starter, and Van Ginkel looked like a monster. He's just got that, that high octane motor, that high,
Right.
just playing with a lot of energy. He's going to be disruptive if
Well,
he
you just
plays as
know
well
on
as he
their
does.
defense with the guy coordinating, they're going to be blitzing coming off the bus.
Exactly. That's what J2K just said. He's more worried about the coaching staff and how good they are than maybe some of the players, paraphrasing what he said. Take us through the defensive backfield for the Vikings.
Well, Harrison Smith has been a quality safety for about 50 years. Um, really, I don't know much about the corners. They're not. They don't
Mhm.
jump out at me. Um, Evans and Murphy, So I think if they got a weak point, it's the secondary.
Yeah, I'll tell you this about Josh Metellus, special team standout. And then when he got his opportunity to play in the defensive backfield, he played very well against the Bears in that home game where Justin Fields got injured.
Mhm.
Josh Metellus had a fantastic game, and I think they really have grown to like him there in Minnesota. This is going to be a tough game, and a lot I think depends on what the Vikings are going to get out of their quarterback position, no matter who it is, whether it's the rookie or the veteran. That might be the determining factor. What do you think?
Well, there's people that have doubt about their head coach. There's people in the league, and they think he's like stuck to the system. One of these. There's the old adage is you don't necessarily play to the strengths of the players. You're
Right.
stuck, and he might be one of those guys. But they got a quality defensive coordinator. They've got some decent players. They lost some good players too. So,
Mm-hmm.
it'll be interesting. But how JJ goes, I think, is going to be determined. On paper, I think the Bears got a stronger team. So, you'd like to say you split the two games between,
Right.
win the home game, you lose the away game, but we'll see.
Yep. Okay. Now they go to Detroit for a Thanksgiving Day
Well, it's a
game. So
short week.
short week indeed. These lines. This is the first of two meetings in this last third of the season. Let's go over what the Detroit Lions have on offense, including Jared Goff, who in 9 lifetime games versus the Bears, Goff has thrown 13 touchdown passes and 9 interceptions. A good pass rush can rattle this guy, right?
Yeah, you hit him in the mouth early, and you're going to affect his game. But if you give him time, he can just pick you apart.
Mm-hmm.
Very solid running back duo, and Monty and Gibbs. Laporta had a great rookie year. Jameson Williams is a speedster. St. Brown's one of the best Z receivers and slot receivers in the league. Don't know much about Raymond. Then you look at the line. Taylor Decker, quality left tackle. Glasgow's a quality guard. Ragnow's a quality center. Their offensive line is probably the best offensive line in this division.
Yes.
Panay
No doubt about
Sewell
it.
is a former high first round pick who many people thought was going to play on the left side, but he's playing on the right. They don't have a weak spot on that offensive line if all those guys are still playing at that point.
Yeah, if they're still healthy, there are some questions about the depth they have at that unit. But yeah, Sewell is a future Hall of Famer. And I just love what Holmes has done in terms of building this roster. Let's take a look at the roster over on defense. And again, this depth chart and all of them are from ourlads.com. Take us through. They got some veterans now that they've added. Marcus
Well,
Davenport.
they added Marcus. They lost a couple guys. One guy retired, Aguara. Marcus Davenport, he must have seen about 5 different people with goats because people keep paying that son of a bitch and he doesn't play worth a shit.
I know. What is it?
It's like, what's going on? He doesn't do anything for me. Reeder and McNeil are good interior guys. Aiden Hutchinson is Aiden Hutchinson. He's a good football player. You look at it at the the linebackers, Anzalone and Barnes, solid football players. And the secondary's been retooled.
Yep.
So, that's going to be the question mark. How does this group play? How do they come together?
Right. Carlton Davis
had a hell of a year as a rookie, but and Terrion Arnold is a rookie. So it's how the rest of these guys, Kirby Melifanu and Davis, play is and obviously Arnold too because he's a rookie. That's going to determine really how effective this Detroit team is. And to me, Davenport, they took like 3 steps back with Davenport being their rush guy. If he, in fact, turned out to be the guy instead of Aquara. Now, the other Aquara, I think, is still on the team, isn't he?
I believe he is. Yeah, we've got a couple of lines.
He could end up starting over Davenport because Davenport, he stinks.
He really does. Carlton Davis.
But he doesn't play worth a damn.
Right. Davis, the left corner, came from the Tampa Bay Bucks. He was part of a solid starting duel there, but he chased the money. And Terrion Arnold could be an outstanding press corner. He was recently quoted as saying, if I'm lining up against my mom and I'm pressed with her, she's going down. So he's got that attitude that you love, that feisty attitude. All right, the rest of the schedule. So you're thinking, hey, is it possible that we go into Thanksgiving and pull off a victory, then beat the Lions at home? And because we were almost beat this team twice last season. I gotta believe
should have beat them twice last year, not almost.
Yes. So I got a feeling we could potentially win 2 games here if this Bears team is for real under Caleb Williams. But the next
week of the season, a thing that I think helps the Bears, pointed out, is you're not starting your division games until week 11. So it's the 10th game of the year for the Bears because they already have a bye. Okay, by that point, Caleb Williams isn't a rookie anymore, assuming he stays healthy, and he hasn't seen any of the NFC Central teams, but he's or NFC North teams, but he's played a lot of teams and played a lot against a lot of defenses. So if he's where people want him to be, that's going to be very, very interesting at that point of the season. You would hope that they can go 4-2 in the division.
Mm-hmm.
To me, 3-3 isn't good enough.
Yeah, you got to have a winning record. I agree with you, Greg. Got to have a winning record. It's a tough division.
And the final game of the year, we're jumping ahead of ourselves, but really, except for San Francisco, they're all most of these, all these teams, or Seattle too. But you're talking just division teams, so we're not going to repeat ourselves on talking about it. But Green Bay, Week 18. Is that game going to be important? Well, you know what it's going to be. It could be very important for the Bears, but and for Green Bay, it depends what each team's record is. And you could go into that game and both teams need a win.
Absolutely. The 49ers, Week 14, that's going to be a tough match. It's in the middle now of a 3-game road trip.
And you got to go out to the West Coast.
Yeah.
Now you're going to have some rest before you go out to the West Coast because you're playing Thanksgiving.
Right. That will help. No doubt about it.
You got that, what they call mini bye or whatever, and that will help. But you're still going out to the West Coast and playing against one of the best teams in football. I don't think you can put a W down there or even a possible W, but yet, they opened the season a couple of years ago against San Francisco and beat them. But San Francisco's got a very, very good football team, very well coached. So I don't think there's any way the Bears come out of that game with a W. But stranger things have happened.
Mm-hmm. It is an interesting schedule, and as Greg said, we're not going to look at the profiles for the rest of the teams. The Seattle, Week 17. I guess let's take a quick look at that because we haven't seen them. See if I got a graphic for it. Yeah, their offense is going to be quarterbacked by Geno Smith, who averaged almost 4,000 yards passing and 25 touchdowns in the 2 seasons under Shane Waldron.
Right.
Greg, do you think that a guy like Shane Waldron is going to be able to help the Bears defensive coaches with, game planning against Geno Smith, or is that myth?
He knows all these guys. So, yeah,
Okay.
he knows the strengths and weaknesses. And they got a couple coaches from Seattle, and Joseph's from Seattle too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that'll help. They're DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. That's a quality wide receiver group.
Really is.
When you look at the line, I don't get all excited over that. I think, and they got a new coaching staff. So Geno Smith played really good for Waldron. Is he going to play as well for this new coaching staff? That's the question mark.
Yep. Christian Haynes, the rookie at right guard, could potentially be a difference maker, but I don't think in his rookie season he's going to be.
He's a good, solid football player, but it's not like he's a first-round pick. Not really a fit for what the Bears do. He doesn't move good enough, but he's a solid player.
Mm-hmm. And then on defense, Leonard Williams, Jaron Reed, Byron Murphy, the rookie. That's a good pick for them. Yep. And then their linebackers look like Mafi, Dotson, Baker, and guys that I really don't know anything about, really. Maybe Mafi. What do you think?
No, you look at you got defensive ends for Leonard Williams, and there are really 5 techniques in that defense. And Byron Murphy could end up, Jaron Reed could be the 5, and Byron Murphy could be the nose. Even though he actually played the nose at Texas, and the 3 technique was sweat. And you'd think it'd be the other way around, looking at their size. Linebacker crew, I think it's average. And Julian Love was a quality player. Woolen is a pretty darn good corner.
Very good, I think. Yeah.
Yep. I mean, and a steal. I think they got him in the 5th round or something. I mean, and you look at the tape and you go, "What?" But that game is here, I believe, right? Or out there?
That game is here in Chicago.
Okay, good. Because if you're going out to San Francisco week 14, you don't have to go to Seattle 3 weeks later.
For sure.
So that's a winnable game. Hopefully, it's a noon start. That's another advantage, because then it's playing the game at 10 in the morning, Seattle time.
Mm-hmm.
We'll just see.
Well,
and then it falls back to that Green Bay game.
Yep.
Week 17 or week 18 is going to be very, very important.
Absolutely. If you can win in that last third of the season, when you've got the Lions, Niners, Vikings, Lions, Seahawks, and Packers, if you can win those divisional games, that last third of the season looks really delicious for the Chicago Bears fans. That would be 4 wins in the last 6 games, and add in week 12, add the Vikings, and man, again, 11 and 12. This season probably rests on what they do against divisional opponents. Is that fair to say?
That's true, but let's go one step at a time. That's the final third of the season. They got to play good the first part. That's going to be important, so that when you get to week 11 and you start playing 6 of 8 games against division teams, you got a team that's ready to challenge, not a team that's already done.
Indeed. Well said. Well said. That is your 2024 NFL schedule for the Chicago Bears. It's an interesting schedule, and I've heard a lot of people say I hate it, and I've heard a lot of people say I think it's a good schedule for the Bears. So the only thing that's going to prove people right or wrong is the performance by the Chicago Bears themselves.
We know
Greg,
one thing.
yeah,
Early season or early this time of the year, preseason prognostications don't mean a damn thing.
yeah, that's for sure.
Okay, Houston, perfect example last year. Everybody had that pick for last in that division. They won it, So, and it happens every year. Every single year, there's a team that makes that jump, or a couple of teams that make that jump. The key is how quick. Well, obviously, injuries. The defense has got to pick up where it left off. They got to get another edge player. That's, to me, very, very important. And how quickly does Caleb Williams become a man and an NFL quarterback?
Greg, before we get out of here, I want to get your thoughts on a couple of other topics. Ty Dunn, who used to cover the Green Bay Packers and now has his own Substack. A Buffalo guy? Is he?
Yeah. He used to work for the Buffalo News. He lives in Buffalo now. Actually, he lives in Colden, which is a southern suburb of Buffalo. I know Ty.
Oh, okay. Okay. So your opinion on what he has written is going to be of even greater interest to me.
I don't always agree with what he writes, by the way.
Yeah, well, he's quoting a former Bears coach who said that Justin Fields didn't see the field well, would look out to the fields, try to look at everything, but saw nothing. I'm paraphrasing here. And then he also said that the relationship between Justin Fields in his rookie season with Nick Foles was not very good. Foles would turn to him to give him some advice and would see Justin Fields on his phone or not paying attention. And this was something that actually I first heard from Josh Lucas, the former Bears executive. That was his last season with the Bears. He was part of the administration that drafted Justin Fields. What are your thoughts about what Ty Dunn has written about Justin Fields?
Well, when you got two people saying the same thing, an anonymous source and Josh Lucas, probably some truth to it. Hey, not everybody on every team gets along well. There's going to be friction. Part of it, Justin has some good traits. Most of the people around here have spoken very highly of him. The knock on him all along has been his ability to process and see things and make quick decisions. The only thing is when I hear anonymous coach, I don't like that term. Put a name. Who was it?
Great.
And
Chris Ballard.
What?
Famous quote. Chris Ballard's famous quote.
Oh, yeah, when he was pissing him off. That was over that wide receiver they took.
Right. I wish I had that handy. For some reason, it's not here. But yeah, Ballard said it. Why are you saying things anonymously? Be a man and put your name on it. And so I agree. I totally agree with you, Cornelius.
If there's some friction, probably. More than likely. By the way, Josh Lucas just got a job in the league like yesterday.
Really? What's he doing?
Area scout for Cleveland.
Oh, wow. That's a $80,000 a year job.
So you won't know. He'll get more than that. But he'll hell, when I left a while ago and I had everybody on my staff was making over 100.
Nice.
On my scouts. And that was a long time ago.
Yeah. Scottish Bear wants to know, are you ready to name your source? Well, why are you asking that, Scottish? It's like way out of left field there. No, but I agree with you. It's come to a time now. It's a time now where people should put their names to it. Or if you're not willing to do that, just keep your mouth shut.
Going back to Tyler Dunn, he's a quality writer.
Yes, he is.
And he's a good guy. He does have some stuff that I don't agree with, but I'm sure I say some things or write some things that he doesn't agree with. That's fine.
Sure.
but he gets good information,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and he's only got one guy working for him. What the hell's his name? For years, he was the Green Bay beat writer, well known.
Oh, Bob McGinn.
Yes, Bob McGinn works for Tyler Dunn and does some stuff. And Bob calls me periodically for, just some feedback on how I think the Bears team will do when he does write-ups for that. He's a really good guy. But knowing Tyler like I do, I'm going to say that everything he had was probably pretty close to center and pretty close to accurate. I mean, there's going to, and part of that goes back, don't forget, to his rookie year with an entirely different coaching staff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think Justin came in a little cocky. There's no doubt about it. After his first practice, he was asked about the speed of the game. He says, I don't notice a difference. And then after, he was sacked a few times and threw some errant passes, I think he was humbled a bit.
But in fairness to him, don't forget they had who the hell was the quarterback? The red-haired guy,
Andy Dalton.
Andy Dalton was supposed to be the starter.
Yes.
His rookie year.
Yes.
And Andy was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And then gets dinged up, and Justin's got to play at Cleveland, and he wasn't prepared to play. And who's that on? That's not on him. That's on the
Matt Nagy. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And we're not, we're not trashing Evie. We're not trashing Justin Fields. We're just kind of reporting on.
Yeah, I'm a Justin Fields fan.
I want him to do well in Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I want him to do real well.
Yeah. And Rel Ramey reminds us that Tyler Dunn did a piece about Aaron Rodgers and Mike McCarthy, his former coach at Green Bay, that was on target. Yeah, he's written some good stuff. We've had him on here a couple of times on the Bar Room. He's a good writer and a good guy, as Greg says. Yep. The last question I had for you, Greg, was somebody in the chat, and I forgot to save it, or did I? Yeah, Sports Chicago Style says, what's the pomp and circumstance with the schedule announcements nowadays? I don't get the cute factor. Bears put their video out. Yesterday was almost a 4-minute production with players acting and former players acting, and every team tries to up themselves with their schedule release. As somebody who has been around a long time, when schedules were probably faxed, maybe even before that.
We used to get it when I was working for the Giants and the Bears. The schedule came out before the draft, not after.
Oh, really?
And we used to get it. Scott Hago would walk into your office and hand you the schedule, maybe 10 or 11 in the morning. Keep it quiet. It's getting released at 5 o'clock or something like that, and everybody, within 3 hours, every media guy had the schedule anyway, around the league, but they didn't make a big deal out of it. Part of it is the NFL trying to, and control is not the right word, but have a big emphasis in the sports world month after month after month. Yeah. So you had your draft that took up all of April. Then you take off a couple of weeks, and now you got the schedule. Everybody knew who they were going to play. It's when are they going to play them?
Yeah,
because you knew in January who what the schedule was.
It's all set up,
right? It's when you're playing each team, and then at the end of this month, actually next week, OTAs start, and. And in the mini camp, and so you're going to have more offense against defense, so that'll, have a lot of press and all the league teams, and everybody was saying how great this guy looks, and it's still dummy football. There's no tackling, but it's their way of just trying to control or have a monopoly on the sports media.
Yeah, I mean,
so
it's
they make a big deal out of it. And then how just Netflix, a big deal itself was the schedule. Day before the schedule comes out, Netflix pulls a big one and gets the 2 Christmas Day games.
Yeah.
Now you can. I didn't check the schedule to see, but I guarantee you, all 4 teams playing on Christmas Day played on Saturday the week before, because there are Saturday games, because you can't have them play on Sunday and then Wednesday.
Yeah,
they have
sure.
to be playing on Saturday.
Yeah.
That'd be an interesting little topic to go through or exercise to go through just to see if that is the case, but I'm sure it is.
So what do you make of this, the streaming services now getting into NFL broadcasting? And so you've got to really pay twice. You pay because you're sitting through the commercials. Those are not going to go away when those games are on Netflix or Amazon Prime. And then you pay to get on Amazon Prime and on Netflix. It's really adding to the costs of watching professional football. Your thoughts?
Is it though? Most people, not most people, but a good majority of people already have Netflix and Amazon account, right? Amazon Prime.
That is true. The people are cord cutting, so they're moving away from ABC, NBC, and CBS and moving towards streaming services. So that is true. But
and when you have these streaming services, you can pick up your local TV. There's ways you can pick up your local TV and still get it. So I get what the NFL is trying to do. What I don't want to see is, and I'll probably be dead before this happens, but where we end up having to pay for every game.
Yeah, I think that day is coming. And, you know, I know that some fans have expressed the desire to want that kind of access. So if I'm a Bears fan in West Virginia and it's going to cost me $5.99 to watch the Bears and Vikings because it's not being piped in over CBS, I'd love that a la carte type of ability. But the NFL is never going to do it that way because it's much more money to just have people spend for the entire season as opposed to offering a la carte.
You can buy game. Put it this way: when DirecTV had the Sunday ticket, and you didn't have Sunday ticket, you could buy, but you were paying like $49 for it or something for one game. Okay, so that was very expensive. I had Sunday ticket with DirecTV every single year from year one through the 2022 season. I did not go to YouTube. I just don't like the quality of the stream games.
Right.
To me, and I don't know if it's because it's being run through the internet, but like when I watch the games on Amazon, in fact, we played a Thursday night game last year. So it was on Amazon and it was on the local channel. And the ABC, local channel was like watching a regular football game. You know, when you're watching it on the streaming service, to me, it's almost like, well, they got the cameras there, but the announcers are somewhere else because it just seems like they're not even. It's what's picked up, you know. It's different, and maybe it's obviously something to do with the technology, but it just doesn't seem the same to me.
Yeah. Well, and hopefully the technology will get better because we're going to see more and more games streamed, and that's in 10, 15 years. I think the entire NFL schedule is going to be on streaming services.
Well, I won't be here then. So
exactly. Greg, great job of taking us through the NFL schedule and providing your thoughts on the competitors that the Bears will be facing. Any final words for your fans?
No, I really anxious to see the OTAs get going. So now you're gonna hear a lot more about really what's going on because the media has no access to what's going on now. And that's strictly offense with offense, defense with defense. But next week, when you get into OTAs, now you're going to have 1-on-1, 7-on-7. I don't know how many days a week the media will be allotted in. It used to be they were allowed every day. That's not the case anymore. But you're still going to get to see or know a lot more than what we know right now.
Were you surprised that Omagaji was held out of rookie practice? And
I guess I didn't know he had a surgery. So
Yeah, in
he had a
October.
surgery on his thigh, and so he's probably just not ready. There's probably some stuff he's doing, and he can go do walkthroughs and things like that. He's just not ready to go hard. And
Mm-hmm.
knowing the Bears training department, and it's not the same. The training department isn't the same as when I was there. Tim Bream ran it when I was there. But they always err to the side of caution, and that's a good thing. Don't make the guy. This kid went to Yale. He's going to get the mental reps. He's going to know what he's supposed to do. And it's not like he's playing, especially with linemen. It's not like he's playing real football right now. The most important thing is to know what he's supposed to do, know the assignment. And he can do that mentally every day.
Yeah. Thanks to everyone watching live. The show will be on demand. So if you don't mind sharing it with some of your friends who like good football talk, and Greg and I will be back here sometime next week. The best way to stay on top of things is to subscribe to this YouTube channel or your audio podcast wherever you get them. Just search for Barroom Network and you will find this show and many others on it. Greg, you're the absolute best. I will see you next week, brother.
Sounds good, buddy. See you later.